Good evening and welcome to another edition of Leadership Talks dealing with InsurTech today. I'm more than sure that the viewers and listeners that we have today, basically people who are interested in InsurTech, would be here today. Now, without wasting much of my time, I'd simply go on to introduce Mr. Ratnakar Shetty, uh, the the giant killer, the man behind this entire insurtech movement, who has been trying to simplify insurance with technology for quite some time. Mr. Ratnakar Shetty is the co-founder and managing director at Exegesis Infotech Private Limited. Now, just the name itself has a lot of questions raised. For instance, when we talk about exegesis to begin with, what is the meaning of this term? Why was this name chosen for a startup on InsurTech? So we will come to those questions as and when we request Mr. Shetty to take the main scene behind the thing. But basically, the point that I'm trying to tell you is that he is an engineer by academics qualifications, but I guess the entrepreneurial skill was always there, ingrained into him. And he has worked with organizations like Majesco, Mastech, and I'm sure people sitting here listening to this talk would know when you talk about an organization like Mastech or a Majesco, Mastech. That means he has been there, done that. Now, without wasting much of my time, now can I request Mr. Shetty, please, sir? I would like you to tell us, what is this organization all about? Why did you begin with this? And if at all you think that this is the vehicle going forward.
Yeah, thank you, sir, for thank you in India InsurTech and BeamTech to invite me out here to this session. And I understand that a lot of students are going to be looking forward to this series of InsurTech sessions that you're going to be starting off. To answer your question specifically, the name InsurTech is something which has just come a few years back. So yeah, it would be very not really right for me to say that we thought about insurance or we thought about technology about 15 years back when we actually started it off. Worked with worked with a software company. Felt that we have to do something in India, and that's the reason I left Silicon Valley and came down to India in '98. So it is very easy to get a green card and a US citizenship in 3 to 4 years time. So probably I'm the only one who has come back in my batch from US. So in '98, I'm talking about way back, 22 years back. So we started more as a software development firm, but the product mindset was always there. So to develop a product and to do something for the Indian market was always there from day one. So there were quite some failures also. I'm not saying this is something been from day one which has been right. We actually started off with an intranet based system and launched it in 2001. And unfortunately, we had a very worldwide impacting event, which is the 9/11 event. And we could not even sell a single copy of our intranet tool at that particular period of time. So it is pretty disappointing because we had put a lot of effort into it, and it is like when you can't even sell one single copy of a product. First of all, selling a product in India is itself a challenge, and second off, after putting so much of effort into it, and then unfortunately an event happens which kind of freezes all the budget across the industry and all that. So we kind of took a step back. We started still working on software services, coaching institute, venture capital. All these are the various companies that we did small systems. And there is somewhere in 2006 is when we got our first break. And it was like a project. It is not something which we said we want to get into insurance or We did not know anything about insurance at that particular period of time. So there is a company called as insurancemall.in. That is the name of the company. It is now defunct. It was run by uh, a company called as Bonsai Insurance. That's the name of the firm, Bonsai Insurance Broking. And they said, they had a lot of branches across India, and they wanted to automate that part so that everything need not happen in Excel, and you need to have an online system whereby all the sales can be recorded. That was the first step. We implemented it successfully, and the owner of that company said, okay, let's create something unique, and we went on to create insurancemall.in. Now, even today, if you go to YouTube and type in NDTV Profit and Insurance Mall, you'll find a video of 2006 where this particular portal was launched. Unfortunately for them, what happened is, so it's not, we created this portal. We were still the software or the technology beyond that portal. But this was way before Policy Bazaar, actually. So this is now talking 2006, 2007. Unfortunately, IRDA was not really clear about foreign investment in insurance broking. And FIBB was not clear again about foreign investment in insurance broking at that particular period of time. So they could not get funding, and it kind of died out. But what it gave us is an entry into the insurance space. So we started getting a few more customers into the insurance space, and somewhere around 2010 onwards, we started really focusing on the InsurTech space. InsurTech, of course, it is still not known as InsurTech at that particular period of time. It is known as, doing something for insurance. That's it. Nothing, there is no word coined as InsurTech at that particular period of time. So that's how the journey actually started also.
If I were to just remind you, when did you think of the term? When it was started being used, when did you think about using the term InsurTech for your exegesis?
This actually happened when it is still not, as I said, 2010. We said, okay, we'll get into it. We were not still completely focused on the insurance, because we are finding a lot of difficulties working with insurance companies, APIs, all that. It is still really on a nascent stage. Then there were a few things which happened. One of the things which happened is one of the biggest insurance broker in the world approached us, or basically wanted our product to be installed. So this happened somewhere in 2013.
Okay.
And that is where we really felt, that we probably have arrived, and this InsurTech is really becoming something which is, what it is today as of now.
Very interestingly, I was going through your CV, and you mentioned that you've been trying to marry off insurance with technology for almost a decade.
Yes.
It's quite some time, but for a common man, what is the meaning of the term InsurTech? If you could just explain it in layman's language,
So there are a couple of, a couple of ways I can answer this question. So one was, I'm not sure how many of us in the entire audience is actually, familiar with the word cover note.
Oh, I think almost all.
Yeah. So we initially, what used to happen is, let's say if you want to take a car insurance, you will probably approach an agent or somebody whom you are familiar with, and you can, get this all on a piece of paper, which is called as cover note. And what I understand, and I know a lot of cases which has happened, this cover note was actually passed off as insurance policy without actually cover note being proceeded to the insurance company. So what it basically meant is that as long as it's manual, the possibility of a fraud happening on a common person was absolutely, pretty high. I know a lot of cases where people only had cover notes. They never had insurance policy. That means you gave the, money, which probably would be in cash, to the broker or the agent, and he handed over the cover note saying that this was the insurance policy, and you could be happy with it, saying that you're covered for a year, thinking that this is the actual insurance policy. So from a common man person, now what happens is when you bring technology in and when you pay it online, And when you actually get a copy in your email, you know that that is actually an insurance. I'm just giving you one example of what I think is the difference from what used to happen before and what happens now from a retail perspective. Does that answer the question, sir?
I think what probably I was looking at is a slightly more detailed explanation as to what is the marriage all about, insurance with technology.
Yes.
When we say insure tech, does it only mean that we're talking about products, or do we have somewhere in mind that, okay, this is going to influence and help the insurance companies, maybe the intermediaries, or the clients, so as to say?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, by actually getting the technology piece in somewhere as an intermediary between the end customer and the distribution and the initial the insurance company per se, there is definitely a lot of underwriting, a lot of other aspects which are covered as far as technology is concerned. So one is the UI UX flow, which is more of how the customer completes the journey. The second is without getting into more details about whether you're covered, not covered, just by putting certain parameters and the underwriting getting validated in the business rule which sits behind, in the technology which sits behind. So it makes it that much easier for an end customer, whether it be a distribution side or the end consumer, the final end consumer, which could be the C, not just the B2B, but the B2C.
B2C as well, correct.
As well. So it definitely does make a difference out there. Removing of fraudulent aspects which used to previously happen, a lot of these underwriting terms which are very strict in terms of age criteria, your salaries, example, how much you earn, based on that your sum assured in terms of term life and all that. So those kind of, and immediately like all this validation which happens in terms of EKYC and all that, that is something which really helps the end consumer in that sense.
That's interesting to say the least. Pandey sir, I think we have just formed the basis on which we should be taking this forward. Pandey sir?
My suggestion would be, because majority of the participants here are the students. So Ratnakar sir, what would be your message to them? Because most of the time the young students either looking for a career in insurance, or even those who have joined and doing the course, they are always little bit apprehensive about the scope of insurance and how quickly they can go up in the ladder. So how the technology is going to shape the future of the insurance, that has to be, I mean, the core of your whatever lecture or whatever talk you are supposed to have.
Okay. I hope your students are aware of the fact that today in India, of the total premium that is actually collected by the insurance companies, it's only 5% which is digitized. So that is one aspect of it. Okay, so it basically means that 95% is still going through a manual route. The second part of the insurance, which is really interesting, is the penetration of insurance in India. So the number of people who are insured, irrespective of whatever be the insurance type, in India is probably less than the number of people who are paying income tax. So both sides. So you're talking about the penetration aspect of it, which is maybe, I think the income tax is probably 6 to 7%, and I think somebody can correct me out here, but I'm definitely sure that the number of people or the insurance penetration is definitely lesser than that. And the digitization of insurance, basically the number of policy, number of the percentage of the policy which is cut through an online or a digital mechanism is less than 5%. So you're talking about, definitely, if the penetration goes from 5% to even 20%, and even if the digitization goes from 5 to 20%, that means you have a potential of huge proportions which is awaiting you on different aspects, on retail, on corporate, on motor. I mean, every aspect of insurance, there is a potential to automate it, to get it online, to digitize it, to get the underwriting in and make it so simple that you need to have a set of systems which you can do that, which is what is really missing out in the market today. So it is not that, there are so many people out there. There are a lot of startups. There are a lot of people who are already doing it for a number of years. But I definitely see both of these. That is the penetration part also increasing, as well as the digitization part of increasing. So this is like a double-edged sword which will happen, and it will happen soon.
All right, excellent. That explains the entire gamut of things that we have. Professor Chaturaj, sir, would you like to say something at this stage, sir?
Yes, I have a feeling that most students and most of us understand the InsurTech word possibly slightly in a very narrow sense. It's not merely the marrying two things, insurance and technology. It goes beyond that.
Okay, sir.
So, as far as I understand, that all innovative things that you in the forms of chatbots or artificial intelligence, that's one way the technology plays a very major role. The other way is the role of the data analytics. So, how well you are going to disrupt the current business models so that you catch up the aspiration of the newer generation. The generation which is used to work with digital base better than the older generation. The challenge is those who are techno savvy, they will get benefited by InsurTech, but those who are not techno savvy, how is InsurTech going to make impact there? Will it be able to disrupt the traditional business models?
So there are a couple of things that you mentioned right now. One, you're talking about, the technology, like, you're talking about artificial intelligence, machine learning, blockchain. So these are technologies. How you get it to the insurance and make it better. My concern, and this has always been my concern, is that we are still looking at digitizing normal insurance. What I mean to say is, if I go to a site, let's say a retail, I'm talking about B2C right now, and I'll get into the corporate insurance piece also. So when you go to a B2C site, just to go and put your data in and do an online payment and get your policy, that itself, when I mentioned that only 5% of the market is digitized. So what it means is there is a considerable amount of people who are still not either exposed to this platform or are not comfortable with this platform. Now the question comes in, why is it that they're not comfortable? Why is it that you're still, wanting to have probably agent, where you need to speak to an agent who probably has been with you for a very long time? So why is that part is coming in? The reason why that is coming in is because over a period of so many years, there has been mis-selling which has happened. So people are not comfortable still with this aspect. So what we are talking about is that how do you get transparency to digitization so that we make it as simple as possible and as transparent as possible for not just the younger generation, but even people who are a little older to get onto the digital bandwagon. So when you're talking about blockchain, when you're talking about machine learning, when you're talking about artificial intelligence, data analytics, this comes a little later. See, even today, I'll give you an example. When we were actually, we have a decline list concept in motor. So we were doing two-wheeler insurance. And one of the insurance companies underwriting said that I do not insure Honda Activa in Kanpur. Okay, so we were very surprised. I said, why do you don't insure Honda Activa in Kanpur? So he mentioned that during the sugarcane, cutting season, all this Honda Activa gets stolen, and that particular engine is used for the sugar cutting. So that is data is there. Data is there. Data is not that underwriters are not aware based on the claim and all that. So that's how they prepare the decline list. It will help you. If it make it digital, it will help you. But the first part is, how do you make people to come and get insurance? It's an underpenetrated market. How do you make insurance cheaper? That means, again, it's a chicken and egg situation because you don't have that kind of people. So it is always going to be expensive. So how do you do that? That's where the whole challenge lies. And digitization really is not really the, I mean, I'm not saying, because we're still trying to digitize what is manual.
Point noted, sir. And in fact, I already have my first question coming in from a friend of BIMTech, Narendra Bharindrawal. But sir, you just have to wait for a minute or two, because I wanted to pick the brains of Professor Manoj Parikh at this moment. Parikh, sir, can't see you. Where are you? Yeah, there. Yeah. It's like now you see me, now you don't. Sir, I wanted to have your comments on what Mr. Ratnakar Shetty was talking about, sir.
Unmute कर लो, मनोज पारेख साहब.
आप muted हैं, sir.
Unmute करो अपने को.
Yeah, I agree that, as he gave the example, if Kanpur, the Honda Activa case, so underwriting, it's quite interesting to know that data and all these things are available. And I will even second what Mr. Chattoraj said, that there are two parts to it. One is the customer interface, the digital natives, the population which is more conversant with the technology. And the second part of it is underwriting. So one, we are talking about efficiency at customer level, what InsurTech achieves for the industry. So one is the cost part. If we are able to cut down the cost at some level due to digitization, then obviously the company will invest more into it. And secondly, the customer gains through a better experience. So what we are looking at is the end game of InsurTech. So, customers also benefit, and then the company also benefits in terms of cost.
Basically, you're talking about a win-win situation for all,
And as Mr. Chattoraj rightly said, the way we are consuming things now, the present generation is having something called Amazon and Flipkart, and he's used to that speed and efficiency. He orders something today and he gets it tomorrow. The same way he now needs insurance. So as Mr. Ratnakar highlighted that he'll take commercial lines digitization later. I was more interested personally in commercial lines, apart from SME, the complex race, how they can be digitized. Personal lines, as he said, 5% is already there. So that would interest me further.
Yeah, to answer sir's question with regards to I think when you're talking about SME, you're talking about like a corporate insurance, GMC, GP, and GTL.
Yeah, the smaller workman compensation.
Yes, absolutely. So we are the market leaders on the employee benefits piece. When I say market leaders, because basically our software is being used by two of the biggest international brokers, as well as the biggest Indian broker in that sense. So we totally manage around 5,000 corporates and around 20 to 30 million lives. That's the numbers that we have been doing. And this we have been doing for the last almost 10 years on the employee benefits piece. Now here also, we actually launched something for an SME, which is basically, manages around 10 to 50 corporates, with each corporate having probably 10 to 50 employees, let's say multiplied by 4 to 5 lives, so 200 and 250. So we have an end-to-end solution out here, which actually does the entire underwriting. What are the relationships covered? What are the age criteria? What are the premium which is going to be paid by the employee, by the corporate? Voluntaries, top-ups, claim integrations. We have with around 15 to 17 insurance companies and TPA, where we get a real-time claim status, e-card, which is your cashless e-card. You get your network hospitals from them, the list of network hospitals. So all this is something which we have been doing, and this is available both as a website or a portal, as well as it is available on the mobile app, which is Android as well as iOS. So what has happened is, on the SME front, a lot of things actually, most of these people have been agents of insurance companies. So some of the insurance companies cater to around 3,000 such agents, other cater to around 6,000 such agents, and they're dependent on the insurance companies to provide a platform. As of today, that's the reality. Of course, there are some startups who have come in and actually started, to get into this space to provide the SMEs the platform on similar lines, so that they don't have to change every year. Let's say today they're going with insurance company 1, and next year they change it to insurance company 2. Automatically the platform changes, because they are now switching from the insurance company 1 platform to insurance company 2 platform. So to prevent that, there are people like us and a lot of other people in the market today who are saying, why don't you use our technology? You don't have to change your platform. You can always change your insurance company and the TPA if it is so to come onto this particular platform and do it. So that's already happening. But the experience that I've seen with regards to this is more of the sweet line between commercials. What are the commercials that we are going to be charging to this kind of customer, which is dealing with around 10-50 employee base and with maybe around 10-50 corporates, smaller SME corporates. So the second part that we have suggested to them, that why don't you also offer retail, customized discounted retail policy on the same interface. So when the customer comes in, the SME customer comes in to do the GMC, GPA and GTL, they can also look at maybe a customized policy for two-wheeler or a four-wheeler, which is relatively cheaper than what is available on a B2C site. So we have been successful on that experiment also. And we have an instance where typically one of the brokers, we are doing around a personal accident policy, around 22,000 personal accident policies we sell on this particular portal, which is a combination of group mediclaim, group personal accident, group term life. And over and above that, for all these employees who are across the tier 2, tier 3, tier 4 towns and cities in India, and they have negotiated a very good price of 540 rupees for 30 lakh sum insured for a personal accident policy. And most of these are actually two-wheelers. They drive or go on two-wheelers to their work locations.
In fact, Mr. Shetty, I would like to interrupt you at this moment because the question that our friend from Bangalore, Mr. Narendra Barindwal, has put up is almost, what you were talking about it. And he asks you a question.
Yes,
he says, how do you see technology play a role in the underwriting, for example, in a fire insurance policy?
See, I mean, it is not that difficult. That's why we have done underwriting for motor, we have done underwriting for group mediclaim, we have done underwriting for everything. So it is not a difficult thing to get that underwriting onto a technological logic. That's not the issue. That's never the issue. But now when you're talking about discounting, what kind of discounting happens on the fire policy, right? So
absolutely out of this world.
Yeah, so that's where the challenge lies, right? In the sense, now you're talking about the money to be provided to get the technology platform, and you really need to get the volumes into a different numbers to get that meat out of it. And maybe that's the reason why that's not happening. Maybe I'm not, but that's.
And I guess that is where you will have to take this forward and come back to us with a solution. So thank you.
If you allow me, ask me one question.
Absolutely, sir.
Mr. Sethi, the question is that we are a B school where we are harping on the fact that our students should pick up the threads of business analytics.
Yes, sir.
My understanding, if I'm wrong, please correct me. InsurTech as on date in India is still a payment platform where I'm paying my premium, getting my policy, nothing really beyond that. It's like the PayPal and the famous Alipay or any other payment platform that we have in India. Our students, technology is one. We are more focused on analytics. I will like to understand that which analytics are you using? Because the entire business has to be a data-driven business where data has to be assessed and analyzed at a very granular level.
Yes.
We're talking about discount and everything at a very granular level so that our students can learn those things and they can become very helpful to the industry.
Okay, so I think I'll just correct you on one of the aspect. So the InsurTech today is not limited to only payment and issuance of policy. So there is one aspect of it. I'll just maybe briefly.
I understand. I have seen them working in claims models and other areas of insurance, but I will not name because it's a big platform. I have been buying policy from a particular platform.
Yes, sir.
And I'm very sorry to tell you, they don't even understand what insurance is all about.
Yes, I agree with you on that. There is definitely an issue with regards
to about the claims management or advanced claims management how the entire ecosystem works.
Yes, sir.
So when I get that kind of reply from those platforms, I have a
Yes.
feeling that my old agent was possibly better than the current thing. And if we can equip our agents with technology, what we call data, the technology aided agents these days, we call
Yes, sir.
TEA, technology enabled agents, possibly they will serve the market in a much better manner.
So to answer your question, sir, it is not. It is so we do. I mean, most of the insurtech platforms do the underwriting validations. So I mean, very specifically in both the examples, in case of corporate, we completely do the underwriting. We completely pass the endorsements. Every inception data and subsequent endorsement data is passed from our platform. A CD statement is generated from our platform and sent to the insurance company. So it is not that the underwriting is not there. The underwriting, very detailed underwriting happens so that only a specific, based on in typically corporates, when you have 1 lakh employees, 1 lakh 25, 1 lakh 50,000 employees, the benefits become very diverse because you don't pass on the same benefits to a grade 1 to a grade 10. So there are a lot of criteria on which the benefits get segregated. It could be based on number of years in the organization, what salary you're drawing, what location you're belonging to. So the underwriting is very thorough in this. So today, the maturity of the employee benefit system that we run today is come to a stage where insurance companies do not question the endorsement report which it is sent to him. It directly takes that and passes the endorsement and rectifies the CD account accordingly on the corporate front. On the retail front also, if you look at the motor insurance, if you look at the health insurance, if you look at the travel insurance, in your proposal form, all possible underwriting rules are there, which is not validated. The validation happens only when you send the data. But otherwise, all the screens does have the underwriting validations in it, which is built in. So it is there at the insurtech's technology. It is not really calling up the insurance company technology. So the insurtech technology makes sure that all the validations, all the underwriting validations are done, and only then your proposal or your data is fed to the insurance company for them to issue a policy. So this aspect, or this, maybe there is some misunderstanding out here that insurtech only does payments and issuance of policy. It is not that. Even in the corporate and even in retail, in both aspects, in fact, our technology is much more stronger, because we end up having 25 insurance companies whom we have to cater to. So it is insurance company 1, insurance company 2, 3, 4, all the rules engine we have to build into our system, because the customer who comes onto this particular platform is going to take insurance from all different insurance companies, not just one. When it goes to an insurance company site, it is only one insurance company. That underwriting is there. But when it comes to an insurtech technology platform, it has to have all that 20-25 insurance companies underwriting built into it. Only then it can succeed. Otherwise, it will not be able to issue policies at all, either in corporate or in retail for that matter.
Point noted, sir. In fact, at this point, again, I would just come to the specifics that we already have started receiving questions from our students. And
Yes,
before we get into this man versus machine controversy kind of a thing,
okay.
I have a question. One of our students from the PGDM insurance background, Nisha Pandey, she asks a question. Does the excessive utilization of technology necessarily ensure better results? Isn't human touch or element important for an industry that functions on the trust and security model?
So this is a very difficult question. So I am 50, and I have a son who's almost like 18, 19 years old. So he prefers not to talk to anybody and do everything on WhatsApp and Instagram, and he doesn't want to talk at all, right? Mm-hmm. And we are, my mom will actually want to go to the market to get a touch and feel of all the vegetables she buys, and she's not very comfortable when we order from, let's say, any online. So this is a challenge. So this is really a challenge, and very specifically so in insurance, where we do not know. A lot of people, let's say, simple thing like copay, I don't understand. Room rent, I don't understand. What is the meaning of certain insurance terminology? I don't understand. So there is a lot of journey that we as InsurTech have to make. So one is technology. Yes, technology is there. A lot of integrations have been done across multiple new age digital, which is WhatsApp or Facebook and all that, where you start to give promotions, and in a single click you can, let's say when you go to travel site and you say you want to insure this particular flight of yours, travel of yours, you just click and you just take it, right? You don't really bother because you just feel okay, it's insured. You don't get into whether it's baggage loss, whether it is flight delay, all that you don't get. You just click and it's okay, it's insured, and you don't get into the details of it. But when it gets into complications of things like health, what is that you're going to be getting once you get hospitalized, specifically in times like these, whether it's going to be covered, what is not covered, you definitely require something which will also advise you. Mm-hmm. So the middle path is what we have to take, even at InsurTech. Like, there has to be a lot of explanation. There has to be something which is like, real-time chats, which has to happen with probably experts on the other side. Which will probably advise you as to why you need to go for a particular kind of policy, why some insured of, let's say, 5 lakh is less, but 10 lakh is okay for your profile. So those are there, and there are some tools which are already available in the market, which based on the data that you provide, does prompt you as to what is the sufficient coverage for you. So I'll definitely see we do lack on the advice on the insurance part of it, because there are a lot of gray areas out there. And it doesn't come close to like a person walking into my house, explaining it to me, and then, saying that you go for this, that way. So that definitely is missing as far as InsurTech is concerned. We really do have a lot of steps to go on that.
You are absolutely correct. In fact, the good old discussion, like I was telling you, the man versus machine, and whether or not in future all our jobs will be taken away by robots, and InsurTech would be instrumental in that. That controversy will rage on. But before that, I just wanted to point out that one of our viewers and listeners, Mr. David James, has been very considerate in his opinion and ideas that he has been sending to us.
Yes, sir.
My next question to you, sir, is again from one of our students, Anirudh Lal, and he asks you a question. He says, the technology changes after every few years,
Yes, sir.
So in such a situation, how do you think the InsurTech companies and their clients determine how much investment has to be made in a particular branch of technology, whether or not it is optimized for the better results, that kind of thing?
So one of the things I'll sound a little old school out here, but as an end user, if I am able to complete my journey of buying something as peaceful and as uninterrupted as possible, it is the best thing for me. I'm not really worried about whether the technology is latest or not latest as an end consumer. This is always we are a lot of people are basically running around blockchain, IoT, a lot of other technology which are there, which are coming in now. But as an end user, as a customer who's coming, or as a consumer who's coming to a particular portal, he or she is just looking to complete a transaction. They're not looking at what is the technology which is driving behind. Now, what happens is periodically, like the student mentioned, there are technology changes which allows the journey to be smooth. So that is where changes can come in. There are technologies on the back end which makes it optimized. Instead of taking 2 minutes, it will probably deliver the result in 1 minute. So those are things which will periodically happen. But from a functional point of view, from an end user point of view, it has to be kept as simple as possible. If you look at most of the bank site and all that, they really do not get a lot of design and this, because it ultimately eats up your bandwidth when you're loading it. If you go to Amazon and all that, it's very simple. It is just allowing you to complete your transaction. That's what it should be. Technology should not be used for just for the sake of technology. Naya technology aa gaya, laga lo isko. Not that way. That's not really the right thing, is what my thought process out here is. You should see whether the technology really helps the functionality. just because there's a new technology in the market, just applying it for the sake of it doesn't make sense.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you've hit the nail on the head. In fact, I would just go back to a query that Professor Pandey had. He says that you rightly talked about the sale of policy through agency, which is still the backbone, of
Yes.
the marketing thing. But how can InsurTech help in enhancing the productivity? This particular sale of policies. How can InsurTech help in increasing?
So what normally happens is when you provide something to a point of sale, basically a point of sale is what I think sir is mentioning. So when you collate data onto a dashboard out there, which basically means that, the renewal notices go automatically. The reminders to that agent to call up the customer and follow up on that happens automatically. It is not really on a piece of paper or somewhere which is written, or it is just in somebody's head, which is, mujhe usko call karna, mujhe usko call karna hai. Second is, based on this data, and I think one of the professors mentioned with regards to data analytics, you do come to know about certain aspects which can help you prompt, saying that, would you like to then cross-sell certain other policies to that particular gentleman? And since that particular person, the end consumer, actually is more confident or comfortable with this agent, then it becomes like, a win-win for both sides. So he has a dashboard which, says this is what your customer profile is. And based on these data analytics and based on the past purchases that he or she has made with you, you could probably, let's say, go for a proper top-up, let's say a health top-up for that matter, or maybe a term life, addition of another term life policy out there. So those things is something which can come from data analytics, which an InsurTech firm can push as a notification for all these agent dashboards, and which I think is happening today at a certain level. It's not that it's not happening. It's definitely happening, sir.
I think it'll take some time probably to get things rolling, but on that point of group term life,
Yes.
we have another viewer of our Mr. Sundar Rajan who's asked you a question. He says, will the InsurTech share the past underwriting decisions when the new insurer assumes the risk?
Okay, so you're talking about basically the claim data which passes on from the old insurance company to the new insurance company.
I guess apart from that, the information also, because there's a probability that the underwriting information would have changed in the past 4, 5, 3 years, whatever it is.
Yeah, so I think as of now today, what we are aware of is that only the claim data comes on and nothing else actually. So they look at the past policy, the past underwriting, which is a physical copy or whatever has been provided to the customer. They look at the claim data which is there which has happened for the past year, and that's what gets passed on. So we do have a system today. What we do is two things we capture. One is the claim, which automatically comes from the TPA and the insurance companies in terms of downloads, where we get the entire extensive data with the ailments, with all that detail. When did the claim come? When it got settled? If it did not get settled because of documentation shortfall, all that is there with us. And the second part is the underwriting rule. So what we're doing is we are marrying both of them now and providing this to our brokers so that they are able to go and tell this to the consumer or the customer or the corporate, saying that, this is what happened. So last year, let's say you had a lot of claim on this aspect. Why don't you either increase it or decrease, whatever be the suggestion, as per the broker is concerned. So that is already happening in our system today, sir.
Sir, I have one question.
Yes, sir.
Say you work in the employee benefit space. So
Yes.
whom do you work for? Either for insurance company or for the client? आपका revenue model कहाँ से होता है? कहाँ से पैसा आता है?
So we work with the distribution, the brokers basically.
Okay. In that
So the brokers basically use our system. We have a white labeling. So typically all the branding happens of that particular broker. And that is what is presented. So it's presented as a broker's system to the corporates, but the technology behind that is ours.
Yeah, fantastic, sir.
that's fair.
I think before more questions roll in.
But again, one more question.
Okay,
Yes,
sir. Okay.
Nowadays, fair enough that you have got a formal broking licenses, so that revenue model is known to us. But there are many standalone InsurTech companies which are coming into this particular domain. And even
Yes.
we are told that they are giving very attractive quote for the clients.
Yes, sir.
My question to you, do you suspect that they are working on the burning capital burning model just to garner the market share?
This is a very difficult question, and so there is.
I have not taken any name of any organization.
No, I understand. I understand. So there are two ways. One is the traditional business where you say that कि आप 100 रुपया कमा रहे हो, 80 रुपया एक्सपेंस है, 5 रुपया आप घर पे लेके गए और 15 रुपया अपने ऑफिस बिजनेस में डाल दिया. So that is one model of it. And the second model is, you have a couple of $million dollars of funding, and you want to get as many customers as possible by either, reducing the premium, because there is no way, if you look it from a business model perspective. Am I live, sir? Yeah. Okay.
You are.
Yeah, sorry. Okay. So there is no way when somebody is raising 3 to 4 to 5 million, dollars, there is no way I see a profitable business model for the next 5 to 6 years. And the commissions which happens in this particular sector. So I'm not sure what is the model. Possibly that, it may become an Amazon, because Amazon itself, let's say, is not profitable per se in that sense, so-called from a business model standpoint of view. So maybe that is the way forward. But it could be anything. It could be undercutting. It could be just to get the data for that matter, because ultimately they will own the data, and they may want to then start looking at this particular data and undersell, upsell, cross-sell, whatever it is down the line. So a lot of data analytics can come into that picture down the line, 4-5 years down the line.
Sir, it so happens that I have one question to ask you, and
Yes,
which
sir.
I was just giving you a hint when initially when we were having a discussion.
Yes, sir.
You've named your venture as Exegesis.
Yes, sir.
Now I'll go back to the thing, because what I understand, it basically means some sort of an interpretation, or maybe critical explanation of a text or something like that,
Yeah.
probably dealing with the medieval or ancient times. I'm not very sure, but this is, I vaguely remember somewhere. So what kind of an explanation or interpretation are we looking from you?
So you're perfectly right on the explanation of that name. That is the dictionary explanation. So what it means in one way is transformation. So as I mentioned previously, that, when we started off, we were not looking at insurance as a sector, but ultimately we were looking at transformation. So whatever is non-digital has to be digitized. So that was the, crux behind that word of exegesis, where we're talking about transforming of something which is already there in some form into another form. So that is the
Okay. Fantastic. In fact, now I have another question for you, sir, and that this is not on group term or the group business as such. This is on individual life,
Okay.
And the question is that do you feel that the data availability, where the applicant discloses his health conditions transparently
Yes, sir.
while applying online,
Yeah.
or transparency is more on a face-to-face basis?
So ultimately, there is a disclaimer which happens when we do an online. So when we take the health policy, or let's say life policy, and we ask for pre-existing conditions, saying that, what is that you have, either in a health policy or a life policy, there is a TNC which is written out there, that in case, during a claim, it is found out that, you had something which was, let's say, 6 months before, and you took a policy, your claim is rejected. So that is, automatically there. So there is no, and anyway, for term life, let's say if there is some assured above a certain number, you have to go through a medical. So that takes care of it from an offline perspective. But purely from an online perspective, once you declare something, there is a pure, terms and condition which is mentioned, and this is mentioned by all the insurance companies, that in case there is a claim, there is definitely, and if they find out that this is a pre-existing conditions and you are given a wrong declaration, the claim stands a chance to be rejected. Does it answer the?
I think you've covered the major portion of it. In fact, I have another comment coming in from Mr. David James when he says that, basically in mature markets, this data analytics thing is piped down right to the broker. How would you react to that, sir?
Sorry, I didn't get the last part of it. The broker.
Mr. David James has commented saying that in mature markets,
Yes, sir.
there is data analytics piped down right to the broker.
Yeah. So basically, it means that the brokers are not probably using their own systems, and the insurance companies are providing the systems to all the brokers. So what happens is, because every transaction is tracked to a particular broker, automatically you would be able to give that particular broker an insight of the data for the transactions that they are doing. The insurance company would be having, let's say, 300 broker data, which would be coming and flowing to its system. And it's easy for then the insurance company to then give each broker a feedback based on the data which is collected from them.
Okay. Yes.
Is what I feel. I mean, I hope that's the...
I think probably this is what Mr. James was looking at. But in any case, we'll be getting his feedback shortly. So we will have a confirmation on that. And that brings me to a question of another of our student, Nupur. And she asks a question that as the penetration of InsurTech is increasing gradually,
Yes, sir.
and this is visible in the last 5-10 years that we have seen, what measures are being taken to curb the cyber frauds that come as an addition to it?
Okay, so this is one of the most important aspect of InsurTech, which I think your students will be very interested in. And this is one of the one of the great opportunities which lies for your students. And I'm talking about data security.
Mm-hmm.
Now today, believe me or not, the data which flows from the retail or from the corporate is all open. So whether it's the broker or any other distribution agent, it is absolutely easy for somebody to know your mobile number, your email address. So that's absolutely there. Even the systems which are there with some of the InsurTech firms, I can say that they are not secure. So I think the COVID situation has kind of delayed this, but the government of India was supposed to pass a Data Protection Act, whereby in the first step which happened is that all the companies were supposed to keep the data in India. So that is one aspect which has happened now, where Azure and Amazon now have data centers in India. So it is like BFSI, all the BFSI data, you cannot store it outside the country. So you have to store it within the country. Second is PII data, personal identifiable information. What I mean by PII data is typically your name, your email address, your mobile number, or your, let's say, home address. All this data have to be encrypted. Now, again, encryption has a lot of terminologies in technology wise. One is, after it is saved and it is encrypted, that is called as encryption at rest. That is one part of it. The second part of it is encryption on the fly. So what I mean by encryption on the fly is when the customer is actually putting in the data and saving the data, at that time when it is saved on your technology platform, it gets encrypted. So even if you have access to that data, you'll not be able to see that technology. It should be only through a audited interface which is provided to you by your organization, not otherwise. So this is what I think one of the questions that you asked is what happens when technology changes. So this is one of the technology change which has happened. So when the old technology did not allow the data to be stored or encrypted on the fly, here there is technology now which allows data to be stored or encrypted on the fly. That means when the customer is pushing the data to your technology, it gets stored real time in your database in an encrypted format. So even if your database administrator goes into your database for some administrative work, he or she will not be able to see the PII data on the database. Through the interface, yes, but that will be audited. That will be something which will be provided through your company's umbrella as a security umbrella. So this is something which GDPR, if it gets implemented in India, which is the Data Protection Act, you will have a lot of these being asked by customers as to what happens to their data, how the data is actually stored on your server. And we do face these questions because the corporates that we service from the group part of it, these are banks, These are big audit firms. So they are very, very paranoid about their data. And we pass all that parameters from our system perspective.
But if I understand you correctly, Mr. Shetty, what you're telling me is that if the government does not provide the necessary support and infrastructure, probability of a data loss is high.
No, the government does not have any rule. The government has to come with some kind of document which says that these are the things which define personal identifiable information. This is where it needs to be stored. Does it need to be stored?
I think we have some connectivity issue.
We have another 5-7 minutes, Pratik ji, only.
Not an issue at all, sir. In fact, I already have a question for Mr. Shetty right now, which has been asked by one of our viewers, Muhammad Ismail, and it deals mainly with the monetary aspect, Paisa ka mamla hai, sir.
Yes, sir.
So he says that is the application of InsurTech model for conducting insurance business more expensive than employing brokers and agents for conducting insurance business, or is it vice versa? And of course, probability of frauds kisme zyada hai?
Yes, absolutely. So, I think it is not going to be a replacement, at least in India. Very specifically, I feel insurance is still looked at somebody whom you can get it from a next door neighbor or a relative or somebody whom you know.
Mm-hmm.
So that is definitely not going to there. So idea is, how do you use technology in such a way so that fraudulent things are not, like typically previously checks used to be issued, cash used to be given, and people used to cut cancel the policy after 2-3 months of lookup and get check payment, the conversion of the unaccounted money to an accounted money. All this is to happen, right? So those things are something which really gets so one good example is, let's say if we do have technology, I know of a situation where typically people take term life more than what they can pay by different insurance companies. So they have a limit of 20 lakhs in one insurance company. They will take 4 term life policies from different insurance companies, because right now there is no data which connects all the 4 insurance companies to see whether this is really a fraud situation or not. So those are things where technology can really help, is what my personal opinion is.
It's a point noted, and in fact, the problem is the time constraint, and I'm going to. Okay, fine. Then I have a last question for you, sir.
Yes,
before we break off, and this question is from Mr. Ayan Chattopadhyay. His question is very simple. He says, "Will InsurTech comprehensive platform, which can analyze consumer cognitive buying behavior from POSP platform, make retail insurance a pull product in future?"
I'm actually not an expert on this aspect of it. And I think we are applying, again, I'm saying we're applying technology way ahead of time for the insurance domain. Because what we are struggling today is, when I say 5% penetration, means there is already business of 100 rupees which is happening today in whichever format.
Mm-hmm.
Only 5% is digitized. So what it basically means is that we are still struggling to get the 100% digitized. So these things which you talk about with regards to the cognitive, aspect of and all these, I feel are still very futuristic. There are InsurTech firms who are doing it. I'm not denying that, we have to be way ahead in terms of certain aspects of it. But as far as India is concerned, I feel that just to get that penetration and digitization with the existing, I'm not even talking about what is going to be, increasing tomorrow, various types of insurance and all that. Just to get that onto the digital bandwagon is a challenging aspect. And how do you get that itself is a question that needs to be answered by a lot of us, actually.
And absolutely, I'm down to the last minute if I were to be honest with you, sir. But the discussions will go on. Rest assured about it.
Yes,
and as and when we collate the questions, probably we could send it to you to respond, and your queries will be shared with the viewers, listeners, and our students. Thank you very much for spending this time with us, sir. In fact, I'm grateful to all the panelists who are here. in particularly for the InsurTech arena as such, because what we discussed today was more to do with the spreading awareness and information knowledge about InsurTech per se, particularly among the students. There were certain queries from our viewers and listeners regarding clarifications, and I'm grateful to the faculty of BIMTech, particularly Chatraj Saab, Pandey sir, and Parikh Saab. Thank you very much for being here with us. Pandey Saab, all yours, sir.
No, just to express again, thanks on my behalf also to the India InsurTech Association, their office bearer Shobha, Karthik, Subhankar, and of course the guest of the evening, Ratnakar ji. It was really a wonderful interaction. Initially thought of a lecture, but it literally converted into question and answer session only, which he wanted to have.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir.
And so much of engagement was there, even 4-5 questions from our own students, and that too, some difficult question, as he said. So that's a purpose that we should invite people like Ratnakar ji and give an opportunity for our, not only students, but even for anybody who is interested to know about the InsurTech. That's the precise purpose of this platform. And we are thankful to IIA for having such tie-up with us. We will keep doing this kind of lecture series even in the future. My request to all the participants, please keep supporting us in our endeavor. So thank you very much. And with this, we can call it a day, sir.
Yeah, thank you, sir. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.